Warhammer 40K live action project, we previously had a rumor indicating that both Amazon and Games Workshop were seemingly content with letting the project die.
With its gloomy future where mankind faces many alien species, heretics, and even its own demons, the world of Warhammer 40,000 has been a beloved setting for millions of fans worldwide. Regarding its move to a live-action series, the franchise, which is renowned for its deep backstory, recognizable characters, and complex world building, has been the focus of several rumors and conjectures. Henry Cavill seems to be the star of the much-anticipated Warhammer 40,000 live-action series after months of ambiguity, controversy, and concerns about possible artistic blunders. Can Cavill's vision really bring the brand to life without sacrificing its core, however, given the significant risks and even greater hurdles that lie ahead? Let's examine the narrative of Cavill's heroic intervention and its implications for Warhammer 40,000's future. It has not been an effortless road to bring Warhammer 40,000 to the big screen. Fans have long hoped for a live-action version that would maintain the grim, suspenseful world of the game. Months of tension behind the scenes and doubts about the series' future were among the many obstacles the production had to overcome, given Amazon's participation. Fans were worried that the program may deviate too far from its origins, especially those who were very involved in the franchise's history. There was genuine concern that the streaming behemoth, which is renowned for making broad artistic choices, may advocate for a more woke version of the Warhammer 40,000 world, one that might drastically change or weaken the mythology in an effort to appease contemporary views. For the Warhammer community, where the intricacy of the mythology, its unashamed dark tone, and its depiction of a bleak future are essential components of what makes the brand so captivating, this was a key problem. Supporters were concerned that modifications brought about by corporate involvement may compromise the tone and key ideas that made Warhammer 40,000 a cultural landmark, but then the story took a turn when Henry Cavill, who played Superman in Geralt of Rivia, took over. Cavill became both the series actor and producer after publicly expressing his passion for Warhammer 40,000 and gaming in general. Cavill's participation was seen as a game-changer by those who were worried that the series may go off course. There is much more to Henry Cavill's participation in the live-action Warhammer 40,000 series than simply his well-known casting decision. As the main actor and producer, Cavill, a long-standing devotee of the Warhammer world, has assumed a pivotal role. He has a unique amount of influence over the production because of this dual function, which guarantees that his vision for the series is carried out. Cavill made it apparent right off the bat that he intended to maintain Warhammer 40,000's core values. He was there to safeguard the property and ensure that its vast, grimdark world was accurately portrayed, not merely to play a role.
However, that does not seem to be the case anymore.
Amazon's possible meddling in the Warhammer 40,000 live-action series was one of the biggest worries. Amazon has a tremendous deal of creative control over its projects since it is one of the biggest streaming services in the world, but this also means that it runs the danger of enacting modifications that viewers may not like. For many, this was a major concern when it came to Warhammer 40,000. Amazon has been accused of making choices that put diversity and social commentary ahead of adhering to the essence of certain properties. That its vast, grimdark world was accurately portrayed, not merely to play a role or get paid. Rumors say Cavill risked his own money to keep the project from deviating from the mythos. Many fans find this devotion admirable as it demonstrates Cavill's love for the property and his desire to maintain its integrity. Warhammer 40,000 is more than simply a job to Cavill, it's a personal purpose. His passion for the original works and deep understanding of the cosmos make him famous. Cavill's participation seems to be motivated by a genuine affection for the series, in contrast to other Hollywood stars who could accept a film just for the possibility of financial gain. Fans have been hankering over this realism, particularly after seeing previous cherished properties' adaptations fall short of their expectations. The Imperium of Man is a totalitarian government, alien species are portrayed as vicious invaders, and the fight for life is a never-ending, high-stakes conflict in the unashamedly dark and violent world of Warhammer 40,000. Themes in the franchise often examine the effects of tyranny, conflict, and humanity's vulnerability to existential dangers. This is not a world that accommodates watered-down tales or political correctness. Supporters were concerned that Amazon would attempt to purify the content to appeal to more contemporary tastes, undermining the core idea of Warhammer 40,000. But Henry Cavill has been determined to battle to maintain the project's adherence to the legend. In order to keep Warhammer 40,000 fresh and loyal to its origins, he has been working behind the scenes. Cavill has shown he will risk his own money to protect the project. Fans who were worried about possible series alterations that would not fit with the original Warhammer 40,000 concept have found immense comfort in this commitment. Fans are excitedly anticipating what comes next as the series starts to take form. Now that Cavill is firmly in charge of the project, it is unclear whether he will be able to shield Warhammer 40,000. From the financial and artistic strains of Amazon, the future of the Warhammer franchise as a whole, as well as the series itself, is at risk. The difficulties of adapting such a large and complicated world and controlling the expectations of both ardent fans and casual viewers are only two of the many obstacles that lie ahead. Since the reputation of Warhammer 40,000 has been established over many years, any errors in the adaptation might lead to criticism from a loyal fanbase. On the other side, the franchise may enter an exciting new chapter if Cavill is able to maintain the mythos while producing a series that appeals to a larger audience. In the end, Warhammer 40,000's live-action future hinges on Cavill's ability to strike a balance between the project's creative integrity and the needs of a huge budget. And an organization like Amazon, many fans believe that Henry Cavill is the ideal candidate to spearhead this big project, despite the fact that it's a fine line to tread. For many Warhammer 40,000 fans, the idea of a live-action adaptation has been a dream for years. The franchise, known for its intricate lore, vast universe, and epic battles, has a devoted following that has longed for a faithful on-screen interpretation of its grimdark future. However, the journey to bring Warhammer 40,000 to life in a live-action series hasn't been without its obstacles. Initially, reports had circulated that the project was on the brink of collapse, and fans feared that their beloved universe might never see the light of day in cinematic form. But recent developments are dispelling those concerns, with Henry Cavill at the helm of this ambitious project, determined to see it through despite numerous challenges. The Warhammer 40,000 live-action series has been an idea many fans have hoped for, but one that's been mired in uncertainty. In the past, rumors circulated that both Amazon and Games Workshop, who owns the rights to Warhammer 40,000, were ready to let the project die. Reports claimed that creative differences and internal conflicts had stalled progress, leading to a sense of pessimism surrounding the future of the series. The idea of a show based on the iconic universe seemed doomed, leaving many fans wondering if their hopes would ever materialize. One of the major points of contention was the involvement of Amazon. The streaming giant has a reputation for taking creative liberties with properties, often altering original concepts in ways that may not always align with fan expectations. In the case of Warhammer 40,000, there were concerns that Amazon might try to push the narrative in a direction that didn't stay true to the universe's dark, violent, and often morally ambiguous themes. This fear was particularly poignant for longtime fans who worried that any changes to the lore or tone could risk alienating the very audience that had supported Warhammer for decades. At the same time, there were ongoing creative disagreements between Henry Cavill and the powers that be at Amazon. Cavill, who had already built a reputation for his dedication to projects based on beloved franchises such as his portrayal of Geralt of Rivia in The Witcher, has been nothing short of vocal about his passion for Warhammer 40,000. His genuine love for the universe became evident early on, and fans began to see him as the ideal person to lead this project. However, despite his enthusiasm and knowledge of the lore, Cavill found himself at odds with some of the decisions being made behind the scenes. Despite all of the challenges, Henry Cavill refused to let the project die. In a world where creative disagreements can easily derail major productions, Cavill's determination to see Warhammer 40,000 succeed stands out. As one of the few actors who is both an established star and an openly passionate fan of the franchise, Cavill had a vested interest in making sure that the adaptation would remain true to the source material. His involvement is far from just acting in front of the camera. Cavill is taking on the responsibility of overseeing the project as a producer as well. What makes Cavill's role particularly significant is his dedication to keeping the Warhammer 40,000 universe intact. He's not just a hired hand, he's a driving force in ensuring that the core elements of the franchise, the aspects that fans have loved for years, are faithfully represented. This isn't a case of an actor simply collecting a paycheck. Cavill's involvement is rooted in a deep personal connection to the material. As a longtime fan of the game and its lore, Cavill understands that Warhammer 40,000 isn't just another sci-fi universe, it's a world that is defined by its unapologetic grimness, its exploration of existential themes, and its moral ambiguity. Despite the ongoing creative differences and the looming shadow of Amazon's budget and control, Cavill has fought tooth and nail to make sure that the series doesn't stray from the dark, violent, and sometimes controversial themes that make Warhammer 40,000 so unique. In fact, some reports suggest that Cavill has even gone as far as risking his own money to ensure that the project stays on course and that the integrity of the Warhammer universe is preserved. This commitment to the franchise speaks volumes about Cavill's passion and his understanding of what makes Warhammer 40,000 so special. One of the most significant hurdles Cavill faced was the threat of Amazon's creative control. As a streaming giant with vast financial resources, Amazon has the power to influence the direction of its projects. For a franchise like Warhammer 40,000, which thrives on its established lore and unique tone, this kind of corporate interference could have been disastrous. Fans feared that Amazon might push for a version of the series that softened the darker elements of the Warhammer 40,000 universe, potentially leading to the loss of what made it so beloved in the first place. The concerns were valid. Amazon has been known to alter storylines to fit particular agendas, and Warhammer 40,000's complex world could easily fall prey to such changes. But Cavill, who has shown time and again that he will go above and beyond to protect the integrity of the projects he works on, has been fighting to keep the series faithful to its roots. He's been involved in countless discussions, fighting for the authenticity of the Warhammer world and ensuring that the storylines stay true to the dark and complex narratives that fans expect. They're about maintaining the integrity of the themes that Warhammer 40,000 tackles: the franchise's exploration of war, totalitarianism, existential horror, and the futility of the human condition is not something that can be watered down without fundamentally changing what Warhammer is. This is where Cavill's unique perspective as a fan has proven invaluable. He understands the nuances of the franchise, and he knows that staying true to these elements is essential if the series is to succeed. The good news is that, despite the tumultuous behind-the-scenes battles, the Warhammer 40,000 live-action series is still alive and moving forward. Recent reports confirm that the project has not been cancelled, and Cavill's vision for the series is very much intact. This means that fans who have been anxiously following the news can breathe a sigh of relief. Cavill's determination, combined with his deep respect for the Warhammer 40,000 lore, is helping to steer the ship through troubled waters. Henry Cavill's involvement in the Warhammer 40,000 live-action series is nothing short of a miracle. His passion for the franchise, his willingness to take risks, and his commitment to staying true to the source material have helped keep the project alive in the face of numerous obstacles. While the series' future is still uncertain, Cavill's influence has already ensured that Warhammer 40,000 is in capable hands. For fans who have longed for an adaptation that honors the lore and the world they love, Cavill is the hero they've been waiting for. Now, the only question that remains is whether Cavill's vision will be able to withstand the challenges ahead, or if corporate interference will ultimately derail the project. But for now, it's clear that Warhammer 40,000's live-action future is alive and kicking, and with Cavill at the helm, it's a future worth looking forward to. In a business where actors sometimes accept jobs without fully understanding or enjoying the source material, Cavill stands out for him after years of discussing his passion for the series. Let's not be deceived. Warhammer is more than simply a job. It's an opportunity to bring the world to life in a manner that respects its rich history and the devoted fans who have been following it for decades. Being a fan didn't make the path any simpler from the beginning. Cavill faced difficult obstacles such as disagreements over his artistic vision. Games and Amazon. This situation is particularly concerning for fans because Amazon doesn't have the best track record when it comes to handling adaptations and has a history of making risky decisions in their past projects. These disagreements nearly caused the project to fail, and with a major deadline approaching at the end of this year, they had to work out their differences or risk losing everything: the show and the entire cinematic universe they envisioned. The pressure is on to get this right before exploring Cavill's ongoing. In order to maintain the Warhammer 40,000 project's momentum, let's first solve a major issue. The fallout from the Rings of Power is still present in Amazon's adaptation history, and many Tolkien fans believe that the Hobbit trilogy was the franchise's low point. However, Amazon managed to surpass that, turning one of the most beloved fantasy worlds into something nearly unrecognizable, while the Hobbit films attempted to adhere strictly to J.R.R. Tolkien's vision of the Rings of Power. When viewers voiced their dissatisfaction, the show's tone seemed out of step with the original universe. Important mythology components were overlooked and important characters were rewritten. Instead of listening to the audience or making changes, Amazon responded by accusing them of not being supportive enough. This contemptuous approach has made many viewers doubt Amazon's capacity to manage other well-loved franchises, such as Warhammer 40,000. For Warhammer fans, these worries are legitimate. Can Amazon be trusted? Will they make the same errors as with the Rings of Power, or will they produce an adaptation that remains faithful to the Warhammer universe? One of the main points of contention in the negotiations between Cavill and Amazon was their insistence on applying their diversity, equity, and inclusion guidelines to the series. These guidelines require specific quotas for every Amazon project, including Warhammer 40,000. According to these rules, female characters must speak 50% of the speech, and 50% of the speech, and 50% of the cast must be female. There are other criteria for characters with disabilities, characters who identify as LGBT, and characters. Although these rules are intended to encourage diversity, many fans worry that if they concentrate too much on them, they may detract from Warhammer 40,000's main plot and rich mythology. Fans fear that the core of the Warhammer universe may be changed to satisfy these needs, which is a tricky balance. Some have even said that the female caretaker resembles me, which is not quite what I intended when I stated that I wanted to seem like a custodian, but you take what you can get. So when GW started dumping female custodians on us, I assumed I had already questioned if the law had done anything about it. What missions or tales? Far from being a straightforward or conventional universe, Warhammer is a bleak, dark, and war-torn planet with towering space marines, fervent religious groups, and never-ending combat. It would need major changes to the mythology to define the terrain in such a world while trying to use the same standards that work in other settings. Fans and Cavill simply refused to accept it, but Cavill, a skilled negotiator, didn't back down. He offered a potential solution that could allay Amazon's worries while staying true to the original material. He suggested establishing all-female factions in the Warhammer universe by focusing on the Sisters of Battle and the Sisters of Silence. This would give Amazon the female representation they desired without having to change the lore or the fundamental ideas of the universe, but even so, this approach did not meet Amazon's needs. Amazon reportedly rejected the Sisters of Quiet because they believed their vow of quiet would not stray too far from the source material. Given Cav's history, it is obvious that he wouldn't stay on board unless he believed in the show's direction. On the other hand, Amazon had too much at stake. If they had pulled the plug, they'd have faced a major financial loss and a public relations disaster. By backing Cav's vision, Amazon is essentially putting their faith in his ability to turn Warhammer into a massive global success. The stakes are high, but so are the rewards. On the subject of Amazon Games Workshop, I think we're about to see some of the first steps towards maybe an official announcement happening very, very soon. Let's be honest, we trust Henry Cavill to remain faithful to the Warhammer lore and characters, but there's a bigger worry here. It's not Cavill's commitment, rather, it's the amount of money Amazon is willing to invest in this project. This isn't just any fantasy drama set in a medieval castle or a dystopian cityscape. This is Warhammer, a vast, sprawling universe set in space, with enormous spaceships, towering genetically enhanced super soldiers, terrifying alien creatures, and gothic architecture that their live-action Star Wars shows still felt a little underwhelming at times. Sure, shows like The Mandalorian and Andor had their strong moments, but the budget constraints were often evident, so when it comes to Warhammer, the financial backing will need to be nothing short of extraordinary to make sure it doesn't fall short of expectations. But let's be real for a moment. Sometimes watching Star Wars in live action felt like you were seeing a scene shot on a desert soundstage with a green screen thrown in for good measure. And this is Star Wars we're talking about. If they're struggling to make a galaxy far, far away look authentic, how on earth will a Warhammer show pull it off? Warhammer isn't just another sci-fi universe, it's a whole different level of complexity. Take the Space Marines, for example. Massive, heavily armored giants who are practically walking tanks would make Earth's most impressive cathedrals look like child's play. The scope of this universe is enormous. To bring that vision to life in a live-action series, that's going to require a huge budget, one so vast that it'll make the production costs of shows like Game of Thrones, The Witcher, Stranger Things, and even The Rings of Power seem small in comparison. And don't forget, those shows were already some of the most expensive ever made, even with all of Disney's resources. How do you translate their imposing presence into live action without it looking ridiculous? Add in the Xenos, the warp, and the sheer scale of galactic warfare, and you've got a recipe for some very expensive production. Challenge is, this is why an animated series might have been the best option. I know some fans might not like the way it sounds, but trust me, animation has advanced and is a perfect fit for something as grand as Warhammer. Take Amazon's Invincible, for instance. They decided to go animated because they knew that trying to adapt the comic into live action would either be extremely expensive or end up looking like something from a low-budget TV show, and the outcome was massively successful. Then there's Arcane, a breathtaking piece of work that if you haven't seen yet, do yourself a favor and check it out. Invincible is bold, action-packed, and full of heart, and because it's animated, the creators had the freedom to go as big and brutal as they wanted without being constrained by the limitations of practical effects or actor capabilities. The League of Legends universe was transformed by Netflix into a stunning 3D animated series, and some of the greatest narrative was created by the action characters and discourse at the highest level possible. Just look at the popularity of series like these if you have any concerns about the possibility of an animated Warhammer. The wonderful thing about animation, especially 3D animation, is that it gives you independence from the limitations of real-world logistics. Consider a conflict between Space Marines and Tyranids on a flaming, war-torn planet. Instead, illustrate the magnificent Blackstone fortress drifting across space. Done and done. With animation, you can present these enormous grand-scale moments to life without the need for extravagant budgets or copious special effects. In addition to being a part of Warhammer 4000, Henry Cavill has a developing connection with Amazon and has agreed to appear in their next Voltron live-action series, which is being directed by Ross and Marshall Thurber. He wouldn't be working on another significant project with Amazon if he and the company were really at conflict, would he? This indicates that the Warhammer 40,000 series may continue progressing in spite of the difficulties. What does this leave us with? Although the Warhammer 40,000 series is still in development, there are still many creative talks to be completed. With Cavill leading the charge and Amazon expressing interest, it's safe to say the project is far from being scrapped. The recent silence could be a pause before the storm, and as Warhammer 40,000 fans, there are many potential problems due to the financial weight of such an ambitious project and the difficulties of adapting a universe this vast. For the time being, we wait, but keep in mind that in the grim, bleak future of Warhammer 40,000, quiet is just the calm before the storm, and maybe Henry Cavill is the Emperor's necessary guardian. Keep up with the most recent developments. We're all in this together, so you won't want to miss what happens next. Click the subscribe button and enable alerts so you'll be the first to know whether our epic Warhammer 40,000 Odyssey is about to take a huge leap forward. Your chances of staying ahead in the game are protected by the Emperor.